Let's break it down.
My name is Trolls. Welcome to Soundpaint. This is all about Blackbird. Blackbird is one of the deepest drum kits I've ever come across. It features over 37,000 deep samples of a beautiful, pristine Mapex drum kit. All the elements are of the best grade that can possibly come, from an assortment of different snares to hats to different cymbals. It's just a really, really good kit. Engineered by Taylor Larson, who's one of the great drum engineers in progressive modern kind of metal. But I wanted a kit that was more all-purpose, but he's just such a good drum engineer, has such a pristine sensation for all the elements. It just creates a beautiful kit. You'll notice that I have two different UIs loaded up on my screen. We have the good old contact version here. This one has 10 different microphone positions. It has a mixer. We can do all sorts of things when it comes to individual drums and do all the adjustments we want to them. Inside of the mixer, we can send signals around here. We can play with all the microphones. And in totality, that adds up to 37,500 samples. And one may ask, like, how is it even possible to have that many samples for a drum kit? Well, we're using a lot of velocity layers. In particular in Soundpaint, that becomes even more elastic because we can morph between different velocity layers. If you have a normal drum kit, like computer-based drum kit, and you do this, those cymbals will be stacked on top of each other. But in reality, when you hit a cymbal, it doesn't just stack on top of another sample. It will take a part of the transient and the movement from the previous hit and go into the next one, but you'll also partially be muting it, which is what I call a legato for hats and cymbals. We're connecting the different notes together and we've sampled them that way as well. We call that flow note. I can try to show you right now what happens with a sort of old school hi-hat and then what happens once we start using flow note hi-hats. Check this out. This is sort of traditional MIDI. We're just gonna stack the hats and the cymbals. The hi-hat is just getting stacked. It's not supernatural. So with flow note, we are supernatural. We can do new things with the hi-hats we've never been able to do before. So on a traditional MIDI kit, you will have your closed hi-hat, your foot hi-hat, and your open hi-hat. When I really think about how a drummer can express themselves, there's so much more to it. For example, when the drummer gets excited, he'll increase his speed a little bit. He might also gradually open the hi-hat, for example. So we did that in flow note state as well. So we have a traditional MIDI kit right here, or the foot pedal, or open. But let's say we want to go from super tight and then sort of gradually open up. Well, I can only do that here. We can change that. So up here, we have flow note hi-hats where the guy is like lifting the hi-hat slowly so we can be more expressive. Now, in the contact version over here, we can see that we have a beautiful kit in front of us. We have different kind of presets. This is what I would call traditional drum engineering. For me, drum engineering or any line deep in music is like a rabbit hole of rabbit holes. From how to mic up a kick drum and really get a nice, beautiful bounce in the sound, from the methods of recording snare drums, in this case here, having both mics on the top and the bottom of the snare, yielding very different kind of sounds. How to mic up a hi-hat, how to mic up your tom-toms, your cymbals, everything that goes on inside of a kit. We have that in Contact, and we're gonna leave it that way because it's beautiful for those who wish to use that sort of method. But in Soundpaint, we can do so many other things. So when we looked at Advanced Drummer, I was like, maybe we should treat it differently because I'm not a drum engineer. I wish I was. So why not take this kit here, hand it over to a really, really good drum engineer, having him take this beautiful, pristine Blackbird Mapex kit and create 17 new kits out of it that are all designed to just work. I'm not thinking about microphones. I'm not thinking about any of the sort of normal studio engineering considerations. I just know I can play. So in this video here, I want to show you these 15 different kits, take them from different spins, talk about drumming to the degree that a finger drummer knows it, and just go deep into an appreciation of drums. So welcome. Blackbird contains three main directories. We have our ARP kits, we have our core kits, and then we have our sound labs. The ARP kits and the core kits are identical. It's just that the ARP is turned on for the ARP kits. So if you want a preview of what that kit sounds like, you can do that, or just go straight on to the chord kits here. Isn't it nice? Nice and beefy. It's just pure beef. That's a very slow arp. I just felt that sort of kind of bluesy vibe. I could just hear like Derek Trucks or John Mayer somewhere in the background. I love it has such a very sort of rimmy sound. The velocity, this is just like, ah, so delicious. This is the original Blackbird drum kit in its sort of normal condition without too much saturation. Colin Fisher, the engineer of this library, used a variety of both software and hardware-based plugins and effects to shape these kits, but this guy here is in the original condition that Taylor Larson wanted it to be. Isn't it beautiful? Like, those flow notes, when you get into it, the fact this is an ARP and it's completely static, we are not even setting the analog values to anything. Let me just do that a little bit. Just to get a little bit of that sort of analog natural variation in the ARP here, we're loosening up a little bit. Freedom of expression also goes for instruments. Also this guy down here, that's the snare, but without the snare on, snare off, and then with the snare on here. And you can see I could just like, you can roll complete natural. And then up here, we got the infamous rim shot. I just love that. The most funky sound on the snare. You hit a little bit of the rim and the snare at the same time. And then the rolls up here. I love that. There's just like ding, 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 ding on all the cymbals. Like, now, if you notice up here in the UI, you'll see that we have something called auxiliary cymbals. These are different kind of cymbals. For this one here, we had dozens of different cymbals to select from, and that just chose all the ones that spoke to me. They shouldn't ring out for too long, but they shouldn't be too short either. We have all that laid out here. So many different cymbal colors. Also love when you're listening to the cymbal over there. The pitch goes like da 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 da, like it rises a little bit in pitch. We'll also notice that we have a left and a right kit. The left kit I call the tight kit, meaning that the hi-hats are tight on them. So closed hi-hat, foot, and then the classic full open. But to the right here, we have what I call the right loose kit. It's the same snares. It's the same toms. I mean, talk about drum engineering, like check these toms out. And that's just a clean kit. It's just like so sweet. A little bit of the room. Another thing I love about this kit is that all the drum elements were recorded together. So when I play the toms here, I can hear a little bit of the drum kit sort of rattle in the background. A little bit of shake, like the snare, tiny bit. So when it comes to sampling, there's two different ways of doing drums. Some people, a lot of developers, most of them like to do things in isolation. So you get the pristine snare, you get the pristine hi-hat, you get the pristine cymbal. We've done that here, but with all the elements together. For me, the drum kit is more alive when it sings the other notes. Think a little bit of it like a sustain pedal on a piano. Sometimes we want the notes to ring together. It doesn't always have to be so damn perfect. In fact, give me a little bit of the rattle, just a tiny bit. It's still pristinely clear, but all the elements are singing together. Anyway, moving on, here's the darkness kit. I love it. It's a more vintage kind of old school kit. It's a little bit heavy, but sometimes that's the best sound. There are so many beautiful velocities in the lower range here. We'll notice that velocity type is set here to the very sort of steep one, so I can really like. And the snare off here, just so elastic. Speed. Drum and bass. So if I was to make this groove in the arpeggiator, let me just try to do it from scratch here. I'd go in here, I'd go to step mode and like. Something like this. Yeah. Those kind of little bit like reversed effects that I made with the roll, essential to jungle. Let's fuck it up. What a nasty sound. We're in Soundpaint, we can morph. So this is one of those things that's not possible in Kontakt. In this case here, I've doubled the kit, but I took the other kit here, put it up 5 semitones, and then add a little bit of effects down here. And we have this like super sweet, like sort of funky kit, a little bit of pan here to each side as well. There's so much going on. I can hear those little rattles from the different elements too. Like, just love it. Here's the single version of the Error kit. This is one of my favorite kits in the library. It's just so clean and bouncy. Spider Kit. Just a nice, raw, kind of rocky kit. I mean, this bass drum and tom combined. The Focuser Kit. Just a very beautiful all-around kind of pop-friendly kit. Golden Kit. I have a thing for funky snares. In the Contact version, we have an assortment of different snares. We have them in here as well, but they're even more different and sort of shiny in each their different ways. You tell me that sounds like a computer. For me, this is completely real. This is a little bit of an homage to Lenny Kravitz. Just a round, butter saucy bass drum. Then a snare drum that's a little bit low rock and roll. A little bit of like plate reverb on it. Really smacks up here on the rim shot. And down here on the rim. I'm playing it really hard right now. It's also a soft kit. And a little bit in the same ballpark, this is an homage to Prince. Little bit like DMX-y, old school, early 80s. This old school. Also nice with the tom here on the bass drum. Pulse time. So sweet for like a bossa kind of style. But even these softer velocities also on cymbals. It's a little more narrow in its sound field too, but that's what's cool about it. Very vintagey. sand. Again, I can hear the drum kit rattling in itself in the best possible way of the word. Not rattle like something is loose and needs to be tightened, but rattling like this is the soul of the kit. All the elements are singing together. Here's this like more old schooly vintage. I call it vintage oak. That was the vibe it gave me. Just has a little bit of an old wooden vintage kind of feeling to it. Now, as I mentioned, we have the ARP kits here. We have the core kits. Those are identical to the ARP kits, except that the ARP is turned off, so you can just play straight on the kit. But we also have our sound labs. This is where I'm taking my liberties and stretching the library a little bit further. As I mentioned earlier on, we have the contact version. If you want to do traditional drum engineering, have all your microphones and that sort of style, do that to your heart's content. But in Soundpaint, I like to think of it a little bit differently. We didn't just want to make contact again. We wanted to create something entirely new that can really complement other ways of thinking. In Soundpaint, it's a lot about morphing. It's a lot about using our very elaborate effects section here and the ability to modulate our effects, assign them to anything we want, and really get a better control of other aspects of the drum kit. I love this one here. This reminded me a little bit about Amy Winehouse combining 2 different kits. Again, stuff we can't do in Contact. We could do 8 different kits in Soundpaint just in one program, no problem. It occurred to me, I was listening to Amy Winehouse recently, and they use a lot of toms as tonal elements. So this sort of dung, 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 it's the floor tom and the bass drum like playing together. So cool. I something like super sweet about using bass drum and floor tom very softly together. I also made a kit here where I morphed 2 different kits together. We're in Soundpaint, and it gave me a little bit of that sort of old school, like Depeche Mode, like. And I assigned the mod wheel here to my morph up here. Especially that snare drum is kind of Depeche Mode in my ears. Here's a kit that makes me smile because in this one I took 3 different kits, but I went into sound mode here and sort of looked at the key range. For example, this one here is only playing on C1, meaning that it's only the bass drum in C1 that's playing from this kit here. Up here, if we look, we have it from C#1 to E, meaning we're capturing the snares that's coming from this kit here. And then the focus here is focused on the rest of the kit here from F1 and forward. So I'm blending elements from 3 different kits. That's why it makes me smile, because I can cherry pick the little elements from each of the kit that I like the most. And then just like a complementary hi-hat, set of cymbals, and so forth. If you go into sound mode here, you'll notice that we have something called one note stretch. Is this little icon right here? I'm noticing that we have 4 different parts that each have this icon here. So they're all using one note stretch, and they're all using it on A1, I believe. That's because I took one key here and then I just said, hey, I just like you and I don't want any other things from the kit. I just want you. but I want to have you playable across the entire keyboard. In particular in Soundpaint, because we have this morphing technology that we call RTS, which stands for real-time samples, it's now 127 layers with near infinite round robin across the entire keyboard. So even a single key, if we isolate it in this fashion here, really creates a unique amount of material. I virtually have a whole playable ensemble just out of this one key. Now, because we're in Soundpaint, we can combine up to 8 different drum kits together. I took 4 here that I really like. They're toms to different combinations. I did some modulations. If you look here in the matrix here, there's a little bit of stuff going on. For example, when I hit the key harder here, we'll notice that the micro pitch is fluctuating on each of these guys here. Because when you hit a drum in reality, the pitch will go up the harder you hit it. I just emphasize that a little bit in this patch here by modulating each of the micro pitches here using velocity note response. That allows me to have the velocity trigger whatever parameter I set it to here. And combined, we have a mean sounding tom-tom ensemble. But it's still very defined in its sound, still has a lot of clarity. Just so mean and pristine at the same time. Mean and pristine. For me, this is the way I like to do drums. I don't have to think about the engineering. I don't have to wonder with all that stuff. There's already so much noise in the world. Just give me a bunch of color and inspiration so I can try to figure out my ways, musically speaking. Thanks for watching.